Hey everyone, it's Lisa Danforth. I am here with the lovely Lindsey Lathrop Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us. I cannot
Yes.
wait for what you're going to be sharing today.
Yeah, I
And
am psyched.
Lindsay's going to be talking about how to break out of that cycle of underselling ourselves, right? How to charge our worth, which is just so incredibly necessary. But before we jump in, I am going to read a little bit about Lindsay so you can learn a little bit more about her, where you can, where she's been published and whatnot. So Lindsay is a Durham-based coach and a gender equity consultant. She created Promote Yourself Professionally to help ambitious women advocate for their value and advance their careers. Lindsay, I would love that. Her expert advice on negotiation and self-promotion has been featured on HuffPost, The Crew, The Ladder, Upjourney, Trello, and Your Tango. I've never heard of Your Tango, but now I want to learn what the heck it is. But welcome, Lindsay. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. And it's so funny just hearing my bio as it relates to this conversation, because let's just skip right ahead. Everyone needs a professional bio, right? This is all part of selling ourselves and self-promotion. So not to go too far into what to do, but that is one area that if you can get that written and get feedback on it, that will serve you very well when you are pitching yourself.
I agree with you. And I think it's so hard to talk about ourselves, right? To really put it out there. Here's my expertise. Here's how I serve you. And I'd love to work with you type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is something that is it's a very common way that we get in our own ways, and it's to no fault of our own. I mean, it can be a little bit, but there are gender modesty norms at play here. These are the messages and the stereotypes that are downloaded very early on. And it's in the culture that we were raised in. It's in the air that we breathe. It's how we talk to our friends. It's when we don't accept a compliment and we play compliment whack-a-mole. When we use self-deprecating humor, right? Yes.
Right.
So, oh, you like this dress? I got a thrift shop for 25 cents. These
Why
all
do we
have
do
an
that?
impact. Why do we do it? It's because
Let's jump in. Why do we do it? Let's just dive right in. I love this.
Yeah, I think that inherent in this is a really fundamental need to be liked. And that is, who doesn't want to belong? And we really, I think, try to relate to people, and in often the way that women do that is by downplaying or underselling themselves. And it's a way that we are able to say, I don't see myself as competition. I don't see myself as, better than you. These are all stories that we are making up. And oftentimes we've never been told by someone else that that's how they see us. And so that's so problematic.
We have someone joining us, a LinkedIn user. It says, hello, LinkedIn user. Thanks for joining us. You reminded me what you were just talking about before, a quote from Brene Brown, which was super impactful for me. And that is, fitting in is the greatest barrier to belonging, right? We're morphing who we are and softening our message and all of that to fit in. I love your input on that and how that's impacting how we're showing up and how we're charging our worth.
You cannot be liked by everyone, nor should you try to be liked by everyone. That is a setup for misery and resentment and lots of other bad things that you want to avoid. Lots of drinking during the week to ease the pain, all of it. So I will tell you, and I know from conversations with Lisa, boundaries are essential, and boundaries are not a bad word. Boundaries is an essential word. And really, as you start to navigate, yes.
As you start to navigate, go ahead.
And as you start to navigate your career or even regardless where you are in your career, boundaries are going to be something that people will not if you are someone who is a people pleaser, they might not be expecting you to have a boundary around your time, say, when you're like, oh, well, we have 5 minutes left. And they're like, wait a minute, like, who is this person? But really what will happen is they will respect it. And that's
Eventually, they definitely will, right?
They may push back, and that's okay. But again, this is about keeping you out of, I like to call it the resentment zone. We don't want you near the resentment zone.
No. What I love about that, one of the ways that I talk about is giving the people the gift of transparency. If you have been someone who has always said yes and has such difficulty saying no, and you keep adding things to your plate that are not your priority or driving your goals, give that gift of transparency and say, yes, I know this is how I have always shown up, but it's no longer working for me.
That's right. That's right. And even thinking about, this is why we communicate expectations up front. This is why I remember early in my career, I'm like, oh, I have to do contracts with people. Can't I just like coach people and like not have an agreement? It's like the worst idea ever. Because if you are thinking about your reputation and how you are setting up that relationship to be successful, an agreement is such a great way to protect that. And then you can say, hey, this is what it says on the agreement. So in a sense, it's almost like if you have deep people pleasing, this is like a sneaky way to be like, well, the agreement says. Well, it's you that wrote the agreement. Yeah. And, you got one cancellation. I'm seeing you need to cancel again. I'm going to have to charge you for that time. And this just came up with someone last week. And I cannot tell you, I've been coaching for 7 years, and this still comes up where I feel horrible for charging someone that can't make an appointment. It's incredible how deep that is.
I was just talking with a client, same exact topic yesterday.
Yes. Crazy. And what are you doing? You are training that person that it's okay. Like, we are training people all the time to treat us in certain ways. And that, again, goes back to the boundary conversation. Those things are going to make you have such a better time with that person and a better time in your life.
Right. Setting expectations for you and for others gains that clarity. It's those fierce conversations that it sounds harsh, but it's here's what I'm going to agree to. Here's what I won't agree to. And I agree with you. It sets the tone. There's that respect. You don't have the resentment. It's so important. Emma says, accepting praise is key. Yes. Hallelujah, Emma.
Yes.
She says, I just practiced absorbing some praise in an email this morning and acknowledging the person for his praise. So weirdly hard, but congratulations. I want to celebrate you.
Congrats.
On that. Not easy. How often would you say, Lindsey, that people just, can pause? Like, what is it going to take for people to say, I'm going to receive this praise and sort of put it in my back pocket so I can lean into it the next time I need a little extra support?
That's why I love, Emma, what you said about using that word absorbing, because absorbing is pausing to keep it. And that's where it's like, what else can you, to me, it's like, to start feeling how good that makes you feel. It's going to feel so strange. It's kind of like when I first started to do yoga, and I was like, how strange it felt for my body to even be on the floor. That just felt like I just hadn't done yoga before. And I was in my early 20s. I was like, this feels strange. I'm like looking at my toes. Besides yoga, these are like little baby steps. Like, I feel strange when people give me compliments. How would I rather feel about this moment? And also, a compliment or praise is a gift. You would never get a gift from somebody and be like, ugh, no thanks. But that's what you do when you deflect a compliment. So then step 2 with a compliment is write it down, have a boast board, have a brag sheet for yourself.
I have love letters.
Great. Yes. Oh, love letters. Yeah, exactly. So have that in a spot that that's easily accessible. I have a Google Doc that I write down any kind of nice praise or feedback I get from clients, and I have it ready to go. And if you are thinking about accomplishments that you have to update your resume or anything like that, it's all right there. So it's great.
It is, and it's so necessary. That's one of the things I have my clients do often is if someone sends an email or whatever, write it down so we can always remember when we've screwed up or failed or just sort of made a jerk of ourselves, right? We can pull that up viscerally, but we
Yeah.
can always pull up those compliments. So yeah.
Our
Val,
brain's
thanks
not
so much for
wired
joining
that
in.
way. Hey, Val.
Val
Hey,
says
Teresa.
always working on absorbing more, right? Pausing and
Hmm.
bringing it in. Have you two worked together? Because that sounds like it's some of your
Yeah,
work.
Val and I, yeah, we did a workshop a couple weeks ago. It was great on self-promotion. Val's
Oh,
great.
really?
Yeah,
And
and
Teresa
Teresa
says,
is in Durham.
oh, is she? All right. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
when you deflect a
This is so
compliment,
fun.
you are rejecting their gift. Teresa, I so agree with you. And the thing is, we have to, it's a two-way street. If we're always giving, then you can't have somebody receiving. So I know so many women specifically who want to serve, who always want to be giving, but they're so uncomfortable with receiving. But then that becomes the norm. Then you build in the resentment. But also, it has to be a two-way street. You want to jump in and talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I love that word norm. You know, like it's kind of that analogy of the frog in boiling water, right? So it's just like the frog stays because it doesn't know that the water is about to boil because it's just like, you know, increases the temperature little by little. And I think that is what happens when we slowly, stop listening to our boundaries, if we ever set boundaries to begin with. So I'll give a really funny example of this and around underselling this morning. So I'm on Rover, which is like a dog walking and dog sitting app. And I got on there before we got Remy, but it was just more of like, I just wanted dog time. And so I got a request this morning for 4th of July weekend. And this person lives outside of it. It just would have taken me a little bit longer time to get to her house to check on her pups. And so I countered. I was like, you know what? This is like not worth it for me for like a holiday for this price. And so I countered, and she ended up saying it was too much. But like even that, like it took me a little bit of energy to be like, is this worth my time? You know, but what would make it worth my time?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are ways that you can, maybe it's not a major negotiation, but even negotiating how you're spending your time on your weekend. Are you always the person that goes along with everybody else? Like maybe start trying to advocate for yourself there so that when it gets real and you have an opportunity to practice at work or in your business over a contract, for example, then you have some of those feelings. And you can also know what it feels like to get a no. And guess what? You're going to be okay. It's okay.
The more no's you
should
get, the more yeses you're going to get, right? We have to
totally
experience.
There's this great book called Go for No that she talks about having a no goal. So set a number of set a goal for yourself and a number of no's before you lower your price. Because we tend to, if we get a no once, we're like, oh, well, then everyone's telling me it's too expensive. It's like, okay, like a data set of one.
So Emma says, I've started a praise folder, an email folder, easy thing to save emails to be able to go back to. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Val is smiling. We got a bunch of comments in here. If I don't ask, you can't say yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so with you on that one, Laura. My big thing is it's my responsibility to ask what I want or need. It's your responsibility to say that doesn't work for me, or here's what I am willing to do. Great topic.
Exactly.
Hey, Marion, thanks so much for dialing in. Awesome.
Yay. Hi, Marion. Yeah. And to go off of that, Lisa, the responsibility piece and the questions to ask yourself, I think even before those questions, the better question to think about is like, how do I want to feel about this experience? You know?
Ooh, intention. How
do I want to feel about this? And start from there, because that is going to start helping you think about, all right, well, like what thoughts do I need to have about this? And, and we know thoughts create our feelings and feelings create our actions. So that really starts you down this path of being more intentional around what the result is that you're looking for.
Which ties beautifully into, you talk about self-promotion before negotiation, right? So knowing that outcome right? Putting it out there. Can you
Yes.
share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So negotiation is obviously, trying to ask, well, it doesn't always have to be about money, but there are other things that you might negotiate. But I always think about it this way. How could we ask for something more if someone doesn't know what it is that we have to offer? And that's really what self-promotion is.
Right? I love. Can you
So
repeat that?
basic.
Just drive that one home a little bit further, if you would.
Sure. So how can we expect to get more or ask for more and be successful if people don't know what it is that we have to offer? People are not mind readers. So it is up to us.
Would like them to be on occasion.
Sure. Not always. But it is up to us. And we are, whether you have a business or you're employed, we are all entrepreneurs. We all have skills and expertise and experience that we are selling in the marketplace. And maybe you have multiple clients, or maybe you have one client and that client is your employer. Great. And you have to be your own marketing department. You have to be your own PR person, because no one is going to recognize your hard work. And in fact, I really think of this, I think of self-promotion as working smarter, not harder, because what you're doing is you're building your credibility based on what you've already done. There are probably incredible things that you've already done that no one knows about, because we are the center of our own universes, and we think everyone is judging and thinking about us all the time, and they are not. So
they're concerned about themselves, just like
them. Yes. Yes. So we overthink it. We get in our heads. And I used to do this very early on, still do sometimes if I'm in like sweatpants mode and just not feeling confident. But if I go to post something, I'm like, Lindsey, you're going to be so like, people have already seen that. What? No, they haven't. Or if they did, they'll just like it again and move on. And they'll be like, oh, Lindsey's doing that cool thing. Great, good for her. And I build familiarity. So it's just interesting. It's like, again, another story we tell ourselves that people are thinking about us all the time, and they aren't. So that means that we have to make them think about us through marketing. And that is going to help you build the case for being better suited to go for a negotiation.
And let's be honest, create the impact that most of us want to make. It's the income, but it's also the impact. And if we don't have that self-promotion before the negotiation, how are we going to make the impact, whether it's within our own lives, our own sphere, or the world itself, if we're not letting people know? Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, love the way of thinking and talking about what we bring to the table. Emma. What are the tips for how to self-promote in prospective client conversation? Examples of other client work, and how do you balance that bragging angle? That is an exceptional question, Emma. And go for it.
Yeah. So what I tend to do here, Emma, is I will actually preload the bragging. So what I mean by that is, in the email prior to the client meeting, I will send them to my review page. I will basically tee up any kind of social proof that I have, any other credibility sources that I have, so that during the conversation, I can focus more on them. And it's interesting. Yeah. So I get that out of the way. And what I do is, in the conversation, I'll reference the previous email. And it's not to shame them if they didn't read it, but they'll often be like, oh yeah, that was on me to not have looked at it. So it kind of takes the pressure off you in the conversation. And then it also tees them up to understand that you're going to be talking about your success in a sense. So it's almost like this disclaimer. The parallel to that, I often get asked questions around, the backlash effect for self-promotional women, for example, or women who negotiate at work, which is very alive and,
we're negotiating every day in every
yeah. Yeah, and it's seen as counter stereotypical for how women should behave, right? And so there are definitely repercussions to it. I think the bigger risk is to not do it, but I just want to put that out there. There is a risk to this, and I don't want to be Pollyanna about it. But what you can do in an interview or in negotiation situations, you can make a disclaimer before you negotiate and just say, I know what sometimes people look down or have opinions about women who negotiate. I'm going to negotiate. And in a sense, you're like calling out the bias before you start negotiating so that So the reason I'm bringing this up is if you do a pre-email, it's like you've already started to self-promote. So it's more normalized. And the other little sneaky trick you can do is in those client calls, you can ask them what wins they've had recently. So then you normalize talking like you're normalizing bragging in a sense. So then you're not left alone to be like selly. So those are my tips.
Such wonderful, very simple tips. Not always so easy, right? But we do make it so hard. And I think we do need to start leaning into just trusting that we are enough and putting it out there and just keep going for it. So we've got a couple more comments I want to throw out here. Teresa says there's a skill to marketing that doesn't come naturally for everyone. Oh, hallelujah on that one. Mm-hmm. It is not lack of confidence. It's how to write in a way that engages clients. It's not my forte. Teresa, I am standing right beside you, sister. That is a difficult one. And we've got Amanda Eckhart. This is such a great tip. Hey, Amanda, calling in from Alabama. Yay. Jessica from Vermont. We've got people all over. This is phenomenal. Any thoughts on how women can respond when they do self-promote and negotiate and are then perceived as being pushy or overly aggressive? Jessica, love that question. Thanks for putting it out there.
Oh, I could take this in lots of directions. So the thing is, we can't manage other people's feelings about us, even though we think we can. So let's just put that out there. And the way, being pushy or over aggressive, there is a story that this person has. They have their own baggage and they are projecting it onto you. And that's why I was making the case of the disclaimer. So you call out the pushiness or the over aggressive, like, I know that it's common to be perceived as over aggressive or pushy, and maybe that seems too like staged. But I think you could invite it as a question. Like if you get, or be curious about it. So if you get an interesting, like, oh, that was too much. Like this rover person. She was like, that was too much. You could say, oh, I'm just curious, like, how much were you anticipating, or what was your budget for that? Or maybe I read this wrong. And invite curiosity and hopefully have a conversation about it. Sometimes you'll never get to have that conversation. And you might, you might hear in the grapevine, like, oh, that person is pushy. It might be interesting to go to the source and have a conversation about it, because I think, and let me just say, it's also not your circus. Like if you don't have to try to get that person to like you, it goes back to the beginning of this conversation. You're not going to be liked by everyone. So,
no, and trying to get everyone to like us is getting in the way of us, again, creating the impact that we want and experiencing the joy, belonging. Right?
Yeah. And to me, it's like you just set yourself up for burnout again. If you accept, to not sell yourself or to get what you are worth, and then you're doing this gig and you said yes to this, and then you have to say no to something else because time is finite. It's just like a whole thing.
I just want to throw out there, Jessica, as far as being perceived as pushy or over aggressive, my question would be sort of, what is your perception of that? Right. So often when we get upset about it, it's a belief about ourselves. I know that happens to me all the time. I've been told that I'm bossy or pushy as opposed to entrepreneurial and, getting out there. So my belief, it triggers a belief about myself that I've been told about myself. It doesn't mean that it's so. So really looking at if they and if they think you're pushy and aggressive, are you willing to give them the power to have you not charge your worth? So when we can put it in a different dynamic and a spin on it, yes, it's uncomfortable, but no, I'm not going to give them the power to determine what my worth is because I'm being perceived as pushy or aggressive. I'm asking for, what it is that I want and what I know I deserve.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'd love to hear examples of self-promote as Lindsey is using this term. Excellent.
Well, thanks.
You want to give some examples of self-promote?
Yeah, there are so many ways to self-promote. I think LinkedIn right now is an introvert's self-promotion dream because there are so many things you can do on it. I was giving a workshop on this morning, and like LinkedIn is basically like your own professional website because you can publish articles. Your profile is basically like a about page for you if you utilize it, and you utilize there's a featured section. Like there's so much you can do on there. Here is a tip for you if you aren't feeling expert enough to write an article or to express your own perspective on something. Amplify other people. Amplify other people that are doing things that you really respect. You respect their opinions. You want to get their content in front of people. This is a way of, I call this borrowing credibility. So by me amplifying Lisa's face comes up on my feed. I give a little ditty about like the takeaway I had from it. Boom. There's a piece of content that now shows up on my activity feed on my LinkedIn, and it doesn't have that message that's like, Lisa Danforth has not been active for 90 days, which is not true. It's not true. You're very active, but people are looking at you on there. So borrowing other people's content at first, and I did this for a long time, any podcasts, articles, anything like that is a really great way. And people feel great. Like when people share my content, I feel so great. And sometimes I repost their stuff. So it's right. It's like a really easy way of starting to feel like a credible source of curated content. Right. And then second tip is if you are attending events, creating a roundup post of any of the speakers. This is like a great way to get in front of different people, especially if you attend an event and you want to get in front of the speakers or like get further your relationship with them, amplify them and just say like, I went to this workshop and tag them. And then this is what I've learned. How amazing if you went and used like Canva and made a meme of them, like maybe it's a quote or something that they said. And that's a piece of content you could share on LinkedIn. And that's a way of self-promoting.
I love that perspective. It is entirely different and it is so true. So thank you for bringing that to light because it's a nice entry, right? To be able to put ourselves out there. So I'm referring specifically to repercussions in the workplace, not getting the promotion or assignment. Oh, thank you, Jessica, et cetera, because social norms lead people to see self-promotion as, so spot on. What do you say to that?
That doesn't happen. I'm just kidding. Jessica and I work together on this.
Okay.
This happens all the time in workplaces. And I think if there's a way that you can, I would absolutely address it with the person that's essentially the gatekeeper, because there are gatekeepers. There's politics everywhere. And so if there is an assignment that you didn't get for some reason, I would try to have a conversation with whoever was responsible for making that decision and ask them, point blank, like what was the criteria you used in order to evaluate who got this stress assignment, or how are you addressing the promotions? One thing, just as an aside, one reason why you might not be successful getting a raise or a promotion is because you asked at the wrong time. You need to ask for raises and promotions when the budget is being made. And that means that you want to tee up that conversation months in advance, which means that's when you start self-promoting. That's essentially like when you're getting into your marketing campaign, because you want to make the case for why you're getting this promotion. And so, again, there might be repercussions. You might be acting outside of the norm, but you have to understand the bigger goal of what you're trying to do at this organization. And you might highlight that this is a major problem. And it probably is, because we are all biased. And if your organization is not tackling these issues on a greater scale, then there is probably inequities. And if you can illuminate them and be a cheerleader and an advocate for that, you're only going to help other people in that organization. So it's a hard choice. If you have to have a job and you need that income, it's a really hard decision to make. But I'll just stop there. But I could talk all day on bias in organizations.
And I love what you said. And Jessica, thank you so much for sort of posting that out there, because that is such a huge component. I love what you said, Lindsey, about the opportunity, but also sort of championing the cause and championing the people. And that's just so important to not just back down. And you gave some wonderfully specific tools. So I noticed we are actually at the half an hour.
Yes,
and
we are.
So many questions for you. I can stay on a little bit longer. Or do you have a hard stop?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, we can keep going.
I just want to honor everyone's time who is just here for half an hour, and we can jump back in after this. But would you just share with everyone where they can reach out to you if they want to connect with you and learn more about your work before we move on?
Absolutely. So I'm at lindseylathrop.com. That is my website. I have a blog, so you'll see that there with lots of different tools and resources. I also have a quiz on there if you are interested to see where you land on the underselling yourself or selling yourself. It's we can include the URL, but it's my website / underselling yourself quiz. And then
will you post that in the comments?
I will, and absolutely. And then I'm on Instagram mostly and LinkedIn. So at coach_Linds, and then you can just find me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. For anyone else who wants to stay on, we're going to chat a little bit longer. So please keep posting your questions. I definitely have a couple more questions. One, how do we start building that habit of self-promotion? Because it's a muscle that we need to start building, right?
It is. I would say you got to figure out what it is that self-promotion and visibility is going to do for you. So I call it your visibility impact statement, like your bigger why for this. And you've been using the word impact, purpose. I think those are really great words that we identify. And ultimately, visibility is going to help you do whatever that is easier. It's going to make your life easier. So what is it that this is going to help you do? Yes, money is great. And we probably all have some idea of that legacy how we want to be remembered, even if that's by our closest people. That is what self-promotion helps you do. And so having that bigger why is step number one. Step number two is asking yourself what it is how you want to experience this. Every time you go to post something, do you want to feel horrible and run away, or do you want to feel really great? And what is it that you need to do in order to feel really great? So going back to Teresa's comment earlier about not feeling like a good writer, you could get an editor. So this is something that I just a couple of years ago clued into. A lot of people have ghostwriters and editors. And this person could just be a friend, and maybe you trade skills, right? That's it. Yeah. Simple. You don't have to be good at everything. Maybe maybe you're better at speaking into your phone. Maybe you're out for a walk and you come up with a really great idea. Do a voice memo. I use a transcription service called Otter. Transcribe it with Otter. And then now you have a draft of a possible post or an article or something that you want to put out there. How great. And then you just got to clean it up a little bit. And then you could send it to your little editor friend and ask them to look at it.
I love that idea. Last week, I interviewed Julia Scott from J. Scott Marketing on blogging. And she emailed me afterwards because I was saying I struggle. I know I need to start blogging more, and the stats on it are crazy. She offers a service where they'll interview you you'll answer, you'll give them all the questions and they just kind of clean it up, put a little sparkle on it, and they give it back
Yes.
to you. And I was like, that's a nice in between, I think. So
Yes.
I'm sure there's other people out there like that.
Well, you were asking about Your Tango. So Your Tango was mentioned in my bio. Your Tango is a service that does just that. So they give you a list of hot topics that they're looking for sources and experts on. You can write to the topics, and then their editors will clean up your work and give you, and they will give you a headline, everything. Yes, you subscribe to the membership, but it's like only a few $100, well worth it to be published. So all those publications that I listed in my bio, I pitched them. It's not like they're looking for me. I actively pitch them. And the same, because I think we can sit around and be like, oh, that person's always getting published, or they're always interviewed on podcasts. It's because they're pitching themselves. That's why.
You have to be willing to do that. I tried that when I very first started coaching, which was just hang the shingle, and that didn't work. It definitely didn't work.
It didn't?
Really I know. Isn't that strange? I was like, wait a minute.
It's so strange.
Jessica says, love the LinkedIn tips. Sorry, Facebook. I'm going to post that. We can go into Facebook as well. And then Teresa says, writing for marketing is different from other writing, I think. And I may know someone. It does, absolutely. I may know someone. Let me back up and say that clearly.
Yeah.
I think it is totally different.
It is different. At the end of the day, though, I tend to think of it as a way of serving. It's an act of service. And if that helps you, I tend to think about, even like this, it's like, you don't know what impact this could have. If one person takes a nugget away and does something with that, that's amazing. And then they, the ripple effect that you can have. So to me, writing, and it's interesting because my own inner critic does not speak nicely to me, critic, about writing. Like, I just have never identified as a writer, and yet I write something every single week, either for my blog or for my email or for social media. And it's really like, talk about a habit. Writing has become a habit. And I use a tomato, it's Pomodoro, which stands for tomato in Italian. And so you can get this Pomodoro app, and it sets automatically for 25 minutes. And then it's just a focus. It's like a focus keeper. And I just write for 25 minutes and then take a break because, I'm probably on a different tab, and then I go back to it. But it's a great way to have focus. And if you can get a writing buddy to, again, like, help you with your work, you're going to start building more confidence.
I hear you on the writing thing. For me, video is what I like to do. And if you look back at my very first videos, they are not particularly great. And I'm improving every month, every quarter, and every year. So just being perfectly imperfect. It's progress over perfection, because if we sit in the imperfection, that just interrupts our possibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any resources that you can recommend to someone? I know you've got some great resources on your website, but are there any books or other people to follow to help for us to get out there and really promote ourselves and charge our worth?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books on this topic is called Brag Better. It's by a woman named Meredith Feynman. She's incredible. She's an incredible resource. She has this great term called the qualified quiet. So it's these people who are, isn't that great? I know. She trademarked it. I'm so happy for her. It's so good. Yeah. And so that is absolutely a must read. I love anything around this idea of go for no, because it's so counterintuitive to what we want the yes, right? We want to be liked. We want to make it easy. And so that is a really great resource. And then on my website, I have this post on, it's called a value exchange list, that I absolutely think when it comes to selling ourselves, a place that we undersell is if we end up discounting just based on budget, or, we really want to work with someone and they just can't meet our budget for whatever reason, having a list of other things of value that can help you make up the gap, the income gap, having something like that prepared is really going to help you. And that can just be like a one pager that you send along and just say, like, it'd be great if you could pick 2 or 3 of these, or just be really upfront and just say, like, maybe this person has a big audience, or maybe it's this is also a way of saying, negotiating for other benefits beyond compensation at work. Your compensation is a whole package of your pay plus your benefits. So what are the other things that are going to help sweeten the deal, so to speak, or get you to the level that you would like to be at? And maybe that's even a professional development plan. So I think those are like 3 resources that I would point to. Okay, I'll give you a 4th resource. You may have seen in I don't think I didn't mention it in this bio, but I last year became a certified #IamRemarkable facilitator.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And so #IamRemarkable is a Google initiative that was started years ago that is really aimed at helping women in underrepresented groups learn self-promotion skills and really start to normalize talking about our accomplishments in a public place. And this has been such a great initiative to align with. It's a way that I have been able to meet people from all over the world who are either certified or they're participants of a workshop. So if you haven't been to one of those, I am going to be scheduling some of them coming up soon, but there are also other facilitators that do them. And we can put that in the chat as well of where to find those workshops. But that is such a great workshop because it really gets you to start thinking about ways in which you're remarkable. And I remember when I was certified and going through the training, I was like, oh, I hate this word. I hate this word so much. I don't feel remarkable. And it helps me start to see the messaging and the stories and the wiring that was, in the background. And yeah, so each time I facilitate, I write, part of the workshop is writing a list of ways in which you're remarkable. So it's gotten easier. But the first time I was like trying to come up with like the most remarkable things about me. And now I'm like, I make a great chili. And that counts.
I remember you mentioning it to me a while ago and I Googled it. I mean, it was so much fun to watch the videos. Just want to point out, Teresa says, we need to talk, Lindsey. So
I'm always happy to talk.
Is there any question that I didn't ask you that you would have asked yourself?
I think we have covered everything. We didn't talk about imposter syndrome, which we all have. It gets worse the more you achieve. And, I think it's what I love. Actually, let me end on this. There was Tara Moore, who's a leadership coach. She's very well known. Yeah, she's Dream amazing. Big. Yes, Dream Big. Yeah, you have the book?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up so people can see it.
Or Play Big, yeah.
Play Big.
Yeah, she is.
It right here, but anyway, it is phenomenal. I went through her facilitation, and it's brilliant.
So she surveyed. So there's this statistic. It's like, men will apply for a job if they meet like 60% of the qualifications, whereas women feel like they have to have all 100%. She wanted to dig into this and to see is it just that like women are less confident? Like what is going on? What she uncovered is that it's not that women don't feel confident to apply. It's that we don't want to waste the recruiter or the hiring manager's time by applying for a position where we don't meet all the requirements, which means that we are socialized to follow the rules.
Follow the rules.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm glad you mentioned her. It's her work is so impactful. I was
so good.
Oh my gosh. And it's Tara Moore, TARAMOHR.com. definitely check it out. So
she's great. So that's what we're talking about here. These rules, where do they come from? Why do we follow them? And when it comes to careers,
and why don't we question them?
Sorry. Why don't we question them? I know we can. And there are lots of people who do. And if that is something that makes you uncomfortable, if you see a self-promotional woman and you're like, oh, like she's not, that's weird. Ask yourself why you feel that way. And is there something that you can, instead of looking at her as like threatening or, she thinks she's better than everyone, is there something that you can learn from that person? And there probably is. And you can develop your own style when it comes to this. It reminds me, I had someone say, Lindsey, like, what if I become like really narcissistic or, like very like ego driven or whatever? First of all, we all are ego driven. So, okay. Second of all, that's like going from 0 to 100. Like that's what our brains do, because it wants to like us to stay in our bathrobes and it wants to keep us safe and playing by these rules. So it's silly. I just laugh when my brain brings these things up. I'm like, yeah, Linz, okay. You haven't been visible at all.
I had that conversation yesterday with a client, and I was like, if you are the people who are really concerned about not being, self-promoting too much or putting ourselves out, being pushy, they're the ones that aren't going to be pushy. The ones who are completely unaware of it are the ones who, tend to be a little bit more pushy. So just being cognizant of it, you're going to sense when the other person is sort of pulling back. So just trust yourself.
Yeah.
And we got to put ourselves out there, right? The boundaries. Okay, that was a little too much. All right, great lesson.
That's right. And there are ways, again, like there's a style to all of this, and a way that you can, get the spotlight a little bit off of you, but still on you, is by using amplification buddies. So this is a person that you pair up with and you help amplify each other. So it's not always you just talking about yourself. A great example of this, my husband and I used to go to a lot of events in Vermont together. He's also an entrepreneur. And so we would be outside of the door and I'd be like, okay, who is it that you need to meet tonight? This is the person I need to meet tonight. If you see me lingering by the cheese, like get me out of there, and help introduce me to this person. And it was so interesting for both of us, because I would introduce Colin and to talk about a project that he wanted to show, spotlight in front of this person. And the response of the other person is so different than when you're like, hi, I'm Lindsey. Instead of like, you don't know Lindsey? Oh my gosh, she's awesome. This is what she's working on. Yes. And you can do that online, in person, but you can be tactical about it. Like,
brilliant.
You're there.
Brilliant stuff, Lindsey. Thank you for sharing your brilliance.
You're so welcome.
Really bringing this information that is so important to really everyone, that self-promotion piece. But I do believe that we as women tend to shrink ourselves down a little bit more and play by the rules, like you said.
Yeah.
So
let's play bigger.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. Teresa says thanks to you. But Teresa, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who joined the conversation. For those of you who are watching the replay, please post any comments that you have. We'll pop back in. I'll answer what I can, but Lindsey is the brilliant one here of really coming in and pulling out the answers. Laura says, thanks so very much. Good information, and always good to see you, Lindsey, and very nice to meet you too, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us. This has just been such a treat. Thank you. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Take care.